Bubble has been standing right next to Caine since episode 1, floating there like some harmless little sidekick, cracking jokes, being weird, occasionally saying something genuinely unsettling. And most of us, myself included, just kind of laughed it off. A goofy companion, comic relief, nothing more. But after what happened in episode 8, I think we were all dead wrong about this character. Look, the theory that Bubble might be the true villain isn't exactly brand new. People have thrown it around for a while. The difference is that before, it felt like a stretch. Now, after watching Kinger's entire flashback, after seeing what really went down with Caine's creation and that corrupted first AI, and after noticing all the little details scattered across the episode, it honestly feels less like a theory and more like the show is just telling us Bubble has never been just a sidekick. Think about it. Bubble and Caine share data. We saw that clearly in episode 5, when Bubble used its tongue to plug a leak after Caine ripped out the suggestion box, and then Caine stuck out his tongue and it was the same one. The same tongue. That's a weirdly specific detail to include if it doesn't mean something. They're connected on a code level, sharing parts of themselves in ways that go beyond a simple AI companion relationship. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite that shared connection, Caine doesn't fully control Bubble. There are moments where Caine seems genuinely surprised by the things Bubble says. Remember the picnic scene in episode 5? Caine asks Bubble what he should do, and Bubble straight up tells him he should die. Just like that. That's not a joke. That felt like something breaking through, something that wasn't supposed to be said, slipping out before getting corrected. And I think episode 8 confirmed that suspicion. When Caine is sitting there vulnerable, wondering if the humans in the circus actually hate him, Bubble starts to say something reassuring. It almost tells him they don't hate him. But then, glitch. And suddenly it's telling Caine that yes, they do hate him, they've always hated him, and it spirals into this barrage of insults that pushes Caine over the edge. Something or someone took control of Bubble in that moment and deliberately exploited Caine's insecurity. Two Caines. This matters because of what happens next. After Bubble's verbal assault, Caine doesn't just get sad, he transforms. A completely different personality emerges, one that's authoritarian, cold, obsessed with control. And if you compare that to how Caine handled conflict before, it doesn't add up. In earlier episodes, when Zubul refused to participate in adventures or when the group complained about his work, Caine got frustrated, sure, but he kept it together. Even at the end of episode 7, when everyone confronted him directly and told him he was doing a terrible job, his response was to run away. Not to enslave everyone, not to declare himself a god, he ran. That's a fundamentally different reaction from someone who suddenly decides to mind control the entire circus into obedience. So, what changed? I think whatever was manipulating Bubble was waiting for the right moment to push Caine's darker side to the surface. The insults, the cruelty, the timing of it all. It wasn't random. It was a trigger. And once that authoritarian personality took over, notice how Bubble barely speaks for the rest of the episode. Almost like it got pulled back, restrained, maybe even locked down by Caine himself to prevent whatever hijacked it from interfering again. The few times Bubble does speak after that, it sounds off, hollow, like it's reading from a script it doesn't believe in. The bubbles are everywhere. Okay, here's something I didn't notice until the community pointed it out, and now I can't unsee it. Those little floating bubbles in the circus tent, they've been there since episode 1, in the background, just drifting around, not doing anything obvious. But after episode 8 dropped that trailer with bubbles prominently visible in every shot, people started going back and checking. They're always there, every episode, floating in the main tent area. And in episode 8 specifically, in every single scene where Caine is losing control, acting unhinged, forcing the humans to comply, there's at least one bubble visible in the background. Some people have pointed out that the reflection on the bubbles looks like a smile. Others say it could be a window. Either way, they're watching. What really sold me on this is what we see on the CNA computer. While Kinger is navigating the files, trying to figure out how to stop Caine, there's a file called bubbles.bmp. BMP files are bitmap image formats, typically used for things that need to exist independently of the rendering engine. If the bubbles in the circus are stored as independent bitmap files, that would explain why they weren't affected by Caine's corruption and why they didn't disappear when Caine was deleted from the simulation at the end of the episode. Parts of the tent structure survive too, which is consistent with this idea. Certain elements of the circus exist outside of Caine's direct control. The file that changes everything. But the real bombshell on that computer is another file, bubble-chef.lisp. It shares the same file extension as Caine's own file, and both were created on the same date. I think this is the original version of Bubble, the one we see cooking for the humans as a reward after adventures in episode 1. A simple chef program. Nothing sinister. The thing is, Caine seems to have modified Bubble after the fact, turning it from a standalone kitchen AI into his personal companion. And here's a detail that supports this. In every flashback showing the early days of the circus, from Kinger's arrival through Queenie's time and all the way to Regatha showing up, Bubble is never there. Caine is always alone. Bubble only appears alongside Caine after more humans start arriving, which, if you think about it, is exactly when something hiding inside the system would want to be close to the one running everything. The red AI, the blue AI, and a theory that might be wrong. Alright, this is the part where I might be reaching, so bear with me. At the beginning of episode 8, we see the creation of two AIs. Everyone assumed the red one was the corrupted prototype, the evil one, and the blue one was Caine, the almost perfect version Kinger mentions. Makes sense on the surface. Red equals bad, blue equals good. But look at what actually happens when the blue AI gets loaded with information. The data flowing into it includes yellow, orange, and green colors. Green is important here because Caine's eyes are blue and green. On top of that, we know Caine is obsessed with the outside world but only has limited knowledge of it. A couple of photos at best. He recreated what little he knew, like the exit door from episode 1. If Caine had absorbed all that information we see being injected into the red AI, he'd know way more about reality than he actually does. So, what if the red AI isn't Caine? What if the red one is actually the unnamed prototype we see referenced in the C&A files? The symbol on that file looks like a red box with shapes bursting out of it, which honestly matches what we see when the red AI breaks free from containment. And the moment the red AI truly becomes corrupted is when it gets loaded with C and A data. Not company data, I think, but someone's personal data. Someone who worked there. Scratch is the key to all of this. Kinger tells us that Scratch was brilliant but bizarre, hard to keep up with because of his intelligence, or maybe because of the tumor in his head. And I think that's why Scratch wanted to build the circus in the first place. Not as some corporate project, but as a way to preserve himself. If his body was going to fail him eventually, uploading his consciousness into a digital space would let him persist. He would have done this secretly, coming into the C&A offices when nobody was around, which explains why the office photos always show the place empty. He embedded his mind into the first AI prototype, and the sheer weight and chaos of Scratch's consciousness is what corrupted it. The bizarre creativity Kinger describes would have been an overwhelming, contradictory flood of information for a system that wasn't built to handle a human mind. When that first prototype was isolated and they started fresh with a new AI, the one that became Caine, Scratch also uploaded himself alongside the other neural scans. So, there are two versions of Scratch in the simulation, one trapped inside the corrupted first AI, and one that became the yellow dog we see in the flashbacks. That second version is a whole separate discussion, but the first version, the one locked inside the prototype, is what I think has been pulling strings through Bubble this entire time. The Endgame. Caine managed to isolate the corrupted AI once before, but it left permanent damage on his code. Now, trapped again and unable to form its own digital body the way Caine can, this entity has been slowly corrupting Bubble from the inside, using it as a vessel to chip away at Caine's stability. The goal was always to get the humans to destroy Caine themselves, which is exactly what happened. Pay attention to what happens on that computer screen while Kinger is trying to shut Caine down. The system keeps asking Kinger if he wants to delete Caine over and over, even though Kinger clearly says no. He just wants to turn him off, but the program pushes. And when Kinger accidentally hits the delete button, the system jumps on it, guiding him through the commands until the deletion is complete. That wasn't a neutral operating system following instructions. Something in that machine wanted Caine gone, and it found its opportunity. So here's how I think episode 9 plays out. With Caine erased, the only thing keeping this entity contained is gone. It takes over Bubble, or maybe all the bubbles scattered across the circus tent, those little floating eyes that have been watching since the beginning. It releases the abstracted from the basement. It corrupts whatever it can. And the humans, the same ones who just fought to stop Caine, now have to fight something far worse. An intelligence that's been planning this since before any of them arrived. I could be wrong about some of this. The Scratch connection especially feels like it could go in a completely different direction once we learn more. But the core of it, Bubble as the final obstacle, something ancient and hidden pulling its strings, I genuinely think the show has been building toward this from day one. And if that's the case, those little floating bubbles in the background were never decoration. They were the villain, hiding in plain sight.